Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Welcome all to the reading from Śrī Laghu Bhāgavatāmrta of Śrīla Rupa Gosvāmi, written by Gopi Pranadhan Prabhu. So we are reading from at the moment chapter 1, Swam Rupa Tadekatma and Avesha. Text 13 we will continue reading from. Mukam karoti vachalam pangum langhete girim yat kripatamam vande Shri Gurum Deen Tarinam Paramananda Madhavam Shri Chaitanya Ishwaram Hari Om Tat Sat. Yatha Brahma Samhitayam Ishwarah Paramah Krishna Satchidananda Vigraha Anadiradir Govindah Sarvakarana Karanam. Yatha Brahma Samhitayam. As stated in the Brahma Samhita 5.1, Krishna, who is known as Govinda, is the Supreme Godhead. He has an eternal, blissful, spiritual body. He is the origin of all and has no other origin, for he is the prime cause of all causes. I feel like going through the word-by-word meaning of this verse as well. Yatha, as Brahma Samhitayam, in the Brahma Samhita, Ishwarah, the controller, Paramaha, Supreme Krishna, Lord Krishna, Sat, comprising eternal existence, Chit, absolute knowledge, Ananda, and absolute bliss, Vigraha, whose form, Anadi, without beginning, Adi, the origin, Govindaha, Lord Govinda, Sarvakaran Karanam, the cause of all causes, Iti, thus. This verse reveals Krishna as the one and only example of Swam Rupa. The word Krishna at the end of the first line is the subject of this affirmation, and the other nouns and adjectives describe his qualities. The name Krishna should be understood as established by convention, rudhi, rather than by lexical and grammatical construction, that is the yoga, from other words, prefixes and suffixes. As a rule, conventional meanings take precedence over derived meanings. Rudhi yogam apharati. A rudhi meaning overrules a yoga meaning. Thus, even though the name Krishna is sometimes said to be derived from the parts Krish, that is existence, and Na, that is bliss, and is thus taken to mean the bliss beyond material existence, the preferred meaning is simply the conventional reference to the son of Yashoda and Nanda, as stated by Sri Lakshmidhar Swami in his Bhagwan Nam Kaumudi 3.6. Krishna Shabdasya Tamal Shyamal Tvishi Yashoda Stanan Dhaye Parabrahmani Rudhi. Okay, which means the word Krishna is a conventional name for the Supreme Absolute Truth, whose color is dark blue like a tamal tree and who drinks from the breast of Yashoda. The two modifying words in the verse under discussion, Ishwaraha, that is Lord, and Paramaha, that is Supreme, indicate that Krishna is the original Godhead. The Swam Rup, independent of all others. If he were not so, the verse indicate that Krishna is the original Godhead, the Swam Rupa, independent of all others. If he were not so, the verse would simply call him Ishwaraha rather than Ishwaraha Paramaha. In other words, Krishna is distinct from all his expansions. What is the substance of Krishna's form? He is such Chidanand Vigraha, which indicates that his personal form, that is the Vigraha, is eternal Sat and composed of purely conscious bliss, Chidanand, and he is the perfect embodiment of his self-manifest ecstasy. The word Sat can also refer to his exquisite beauty, the delightful configuration, Sannivesha of his body. This further distinguishes Krishna from the liberated jivas in this world, who are different from their bodies. In what enjoyable activities does Krishna engage? He is Govinda, a cowherd, as described in Brahma Samhita 5.29, Surabhir Abhipalayantam. Such an engagement is not at all demeaning for the Supreme Personality of Godhead, because according to the Ghost Sukta, Gobhyo Yagnaha Pravartante Gobhyo Devaha Samuttithaha Gobhir Vedaha Samudgirinaha Sa Shad Ang Pad Kramaha. From cows come the Vedic sacrifices, and from cows arise the demigods. by cows all the Vedas along with their 6 corollaries, and word by word and permutated texts have been uttered. Krishna is Anadi for the Yadus because they do not presume Adiyate, that he is their subordinate, and he is Adi for the residents of Braja because they do presume that he is their subordinate. Since this verse contains the phrase Sarva Karana Karanam, the cause of all causes, Anadir Adir is not intended to mean that Krishna is without cause and is the cause of everything. Calling Krishna the cause of causes discloses another of his pastimes, the creation of the material world, which is enacted by his Swamsha expansion, the Purusha. Sri Chaitanya Charitamrita Madhya Leela 20.165 to 66 records that Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu taught Sanatana Goswami about the Supreme Lord's Swayam Rupa. Now we move on to verse number 14. Atha tadekatma rupaha yadrupam tad bhedena swarupena virajate akritya dibhirnyadriks tadekatma rupakah sa vilasah swamsha iti dhatte bhedadvayam punaha. So this is about the tadekatma rupaha. We'll do the word by word meaning of this verse as well. Atha is next. Tadekatma rupaha, the tadekatma rupa, yat which, rupam form, tat from that, swam rupa, abhedena which is non-different, sarupena with its form, virajate appears, akriti in bodily features, adhibhi and so on, anyadrik otherwise, saha etat as it, ekatma same, rupakaha having its form, saha it, vilasaha swamshaha iti called vilas and swamsha, dhatte assumes bhedadvayam 2 kinds, punaha again. Next, the ekatma rupa, the form of the original person that is not different from him but that displays some difference in bodily features and so on, is called tadekatma rupa. This form has 2 varieties, vilas and swamsha. The Supreme Lord's ekatma forms are in the essence identical with his swayam rupa. They appear different in their bodily features and activities. The Vishwakosha dictionary defines Akriti as Akritihi Kathita Rupe Samanya Vapushor Api. Akriti can be used to mean form, species and body. Verse 15. Tatra vilasaha swarupam manyakaram yattasya bhati vilasatah prayenatma samam shaktya sa vilaso nigadyate. The vilas form is defined as follows: the Lord's self-same form whose appearance differs from the Swayam Rupas but who displays almost equal powers while enjoying pastimes is known as vilas. The ekatma forms in the category of vilas with the bodily features different from the Swayam Rupas are expansions of the Swayam Rupa for performing special pastimes. They display potency nearly equal to that of the Swayam Rupa. For example, Lord Narayan lacks only a few of Krishna's unique qualities. Leela Premana Priyadhikayam Madhurye Venu Rupayoha Itya Asadharanam Proktam Govindasya Chatushtayam. His pastimes, his dear devotees who have exceptional love for him, the charm of his flute and his sweet beauty, these are the 4 unique qualities of Govinda. This is from Bhakti Rasamrita Sindhu 2.1.43. Text 16. Paramavyomanathastu Govindasya yatha smritah Paramavyomanathassya Vasudevascha yadrishaha. For example, the scriptures describe the Lord of the spiritual sky, Narayan, as a vilas of Govinda and Lord Vasudev similarly as a vilas of Narayan. The consensus of the Vedas is that all forms of Godhead and of the demigods expand from Krishna as their one original source. This is stated explicitly in such confidential texts as Sri Brahma Samhita 5.43, Golok Namni Nijdhamni Tale Chatasya Devi Mahesh Haridhamsu Teshu Teshu Te Te Prabhava Nichaya Vihitash Chayena Govindamadi Purusham Tam Aham Bhajami. Below the planet named Goloka Vrindavan are the planets known as Devi Dham, Mahesh Dham and Hari Dham. These are opulent in different ways. I adore the primeval Lord Govinda, who has allotted the rulers of those graded realms their respective authorities. Although Sri Krishna's two expansions, Narayan and Vasudev, seem the same in physical appearance, both having 4 arms and a dark blue complexion, they have different mentalities. As the subsequent expansion, Vasudev considers himself as a servant of Narayan. He feels shy in the presence of Lord Narayan, just as Bharat feels constrained from acting independently from his elder brother, Shri Ram. Verse 17, Swamshaha tadrisho nyuna shaktim yona vyanakti swamsha iritaha sankarshana dirmatyasya diryatha tattva swadhamasu. The swamsha that forms similar to the last expansions but displaying less potency is called swamsha. Among the swamshas are Sankarshan, Matsya and others, each of whom appears in his own abode. The swamsha expansions of Godhead, just like the Vilas forms, are essentially non-different from the original Swayam Rupa. In each of his personal forms, God is nevertheless than the complete whole, but the swamsha expansions may seem lesser because they refrain from exhibiting all of their potencies. Srila Baladev Vidyabhushan addresses a possible objection in this regard. Someone might suggest that distinguishing the forms of Godhead as Amsha or the part and Amshi, the possessor of the part, goes against the teachings of our predecessor Acharyas. Sri Madhva Muni, in his explanation of the statement of the Vedanta Sutras 1.1.9, Swapyayat, this sutra literally means because of merging back into himself. Sri Madhva explains it with the help of Upanishad, that's the invocation Om Purnam Adaha Purnam Idam Purnat Purnam Udachyate. He asserts that all the avatars of the Supreme Personality ultimately merge back into him, the original source, according to the hypothetical presenter of this objection. Then, since Acharya Madhva characterizes all the avatars of Godhead as Purnam, that is complete, there cannot be any distinction among them as Amsha and Amshi. Srila Baladev Vidyabhushan contends, on the contrary, that Madhva actually favors the concepts of Amsha and Amshi as revealed by his comments on the section of the Vedanta Sutras, beginning with Sutra 2.3.46, Prakashadi Van Navam Parahad, the Supreme is not like this, similar to light, and so on. According to Srimadva, although the avatars of God, like Lord Matsya, are Amsha of the Lord's original Amshi, they are not limited Amshas like the Jivas. He continues to explain that the Lord's avatars and the Jivas are similar in that they are both Amshas, but there are important differences between them. One might also say that the fire of universal devastation and illumination of a firefly are similar in that they are both expansions of the element fire, but they are very different. Similarly, comparisons could be made between urine and ocean of nectar as products of the element water, and between feces and the great Mount Meru as products of the element earth. Despite their common origin, the members of each pair are very different from one another. The purport of Swapyayat, therefore, is not that there is no hierarchy of emanation among the forms of Godhead, but that the essential being of the Supreme is always complete and perfect in all his appearances. Śrīla Rupa Gosvāmi will clarify this point in the 5th chapter of Laghu Bhāgavatāmrta 1.5.90. Shakter Vyaktis Tatha Vyaktis Taratamyasya Karanam. The manifestation or non-manifestation of potency is the basis of gradation. Sri Chaitanya Charitamrita Madhya Leela 20.183 to 88 records Lord Chaitanya's, or should be 188, I think, records Mahaprabhu's description of the Supreme Lord Tadekatma Rupa in his teachings to Sanatana Goswami. Verse 18, Atha aveshah jnana shaktya dikalya yatra vishto janardanah ta avesha nigadyante jiva eva mahattammaha. Then the Avesh, very great jivas in whom Lord Janardhan invests portions of his knowledge, strength and other energies are also called Avesh. Verse 19. Vaikunthepi yatha shesho narad sanakadayah akrura drishtaste chami dashame parikirtitaha iti bhedatrayam. Even in the Vaikuntha, there are examples such as Shesha, Narad and Sanaka. The 10th canto of Śrī Bhāgavatāmrta describes Akrura seeing these Avesha forms, thus ends the discussions of the 3 different kinds of forms, which were Swayamrupa, Tadekatma and Avesha. The Shesha mentioned in the verse is different from Lord Ananta Shesha, who serves as the bed of Mahavishnu. The 3 kinds of forms of Godhead discussed above are the Swayamrupa, Tadekatma, Rupa and Avesha. Śrī Chaitanya Charitamrita Madhya-lila 20.367-76 records Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu's description of the Supreme Lord's Avesha expansion in his teachings to Sanatana Goswami. Verse 20. Prakashastu na bhedeshu ganyate sahi no prithak. The Prakash manifestations are not counted among these 3 distinct forms because they are not in no way different from the forms from which they expand. Verse 21. Tathahi anekatra prakatata rupasya kasya yaikada sarvatha tatsvarupeva sa prakasha itiryate. That is to say, when a particular form of the Lord manifests himself in more than one place simultaneously, retaining in all regards the same identity, his expanded forms are called Prakash. Verse 22. Dvarvatyam yatha Krishna prataksham pratimandiram chitram batayat ditya di pramanena sa setasyati. For example, in Dwarka, Krishna was visible simultaneously in each of his palaces. This is confirmed by such statements as the one beginning Chitram Batayatat. The verse beginning Chitram Batayatat was spoken by Narad Muni when he visited Krishna's palaces in Dwarka. Chitram Batayatat ekena vapusha yugapat prithak griheshu dve ashta sahasram striya eka udavahat. It is quite amazing that with a single body Lord Krishna simultaneously married 16,000 women, each in a separate palace. This is from Bhagavatam 10.69.2. We find in various scriptures that Krishna expands himself to appear at the same time in the forest groves of Chandravali, Radhika and other gopis, or in the palaces of Rukmini, Satyabhama and other queens. We might ask which of his form are the Amshas and which are Amshi. The current verses address this question. The Lord's Prakash forms are not included in the Vilasa or Swamsha categories because they do not manifest different qualities. Thus, when Krishna goes out from the palaces of Nanda Maharaj or Vasudeva and simultaneously enters the residences of several of his beloveds in Vraja or Dwarka, manifesting the very same form in more than one location, these are called his Prakash expansions. His Prakash is not different from himself in bodily appearance, qualities and the styles of the pastimes. This verse mentions Krishna's Prakash expansions in Dwarka, but he had also exhibited his Prakash expansions in Vraja during the Rasa Leela. Kritva tavantam atmanam yavatir gopayoshitah reme sa bhagvamshatahibhir atma ramo pililaya. Expanding himself as many times as there were cowherd women to associate with, the Supreme Lord, though self-satisfied, played joyfully their company. Bhagavatam 10.33.19. The word Kritva in this 10th canto verse should not be understood in the sense of creating, rather Krishna's manifested his eternal existing form by the side of each gopi. Krishna's being self-satisfied in Vraja means that he is always self-satisfied in relationship with the manifestations of his transcendental energy, which are non-different from himself. Verse 23. Kvachich chatur bhujvate api na tyajet Krishna rupatam atah prakasha eva syat tasyaso dvibhujasya cha. Sometimes Krishna does not give up his original character even when he appears with 4 arms. Thus some 4-armed forms are Prakash expansions of the 2-armed Lord. When Krishna was consoling Rukmini after teasing her with the idea that she ought to select another better husband, he stood before her with 4 arms instead of the 2. Should this form Krishna manifested in Dwarka be counted as a Vilas Rupa, since it is different from his original form? No, Krishna remains the same even when he sometimes assumes an extra 2 arms for certain pastimes in Vrindavan, Dwarka or Mathura. In this verse, Krishna Rupatam means the original character of Krishna who drank from Mother Yashoda's breast. Rupa can also mean character according to the Medini Kosha dictionary. Rupam Subhave Saundaryas. Rupa can be used to mean character and beauty. The original form of Krishna has 2 arms like an ordinary human being. Yatra Vatiranaha Krishnakhyam Param Brahma Narakriti. Where the Supreme Absolute Truth descended in human form with the name Krishna, Vishnu Puran 4.11.2. Occasionally he shows 4 arms in situations eliciting moods like humor without losing his primary identity. For example, this is how we can understand Krishna's appearance from before his parents with 4 arms at birth. Shukadev Goswami states, Babhuva Prakritaha Shishuh Bhagavatam 10.3.46. He became a regular baby, indicating that by changing from his 4-armed form to his 2-armed baby form, Krishna merely displayed his original nature. The Upanishads also confirm that Krishna's real identity is 2-armed. Sat Pundarik Nayanam Meghabham Vedyutambaram Tartambaram Dvi Bhujam Mauna Mudradhyam Vanamalinam Ishwaram. The Lord has 2 arms, like eyes like beautiful lotuses, and complexion of a clear color of a rain cloud. He wears clothing the color of lightning, displays the gestures of a sage, and sports a garland of forest flowers. This is from Gopal-tapani Upanishad Purva 10. One should not think that Krishna's form with 4 arms is superior to his form with only 2, since the idea disagrees with the Anandakya Samhita. Sthulam Ashtabhujam Proktam Sukshmam Chaiva Chaturbhujam Param tu Dvibhujam Proktam Tasmad Etat Trayam Yajet. His 8-armed form is said to be bulky, while his 4-armed form is considered subtle. The supreme form, therefore, however, is said to be the 2-armed form. Therefore, one should worship all 3 of these. The Samhita advises us to worship all 3 forms because they are essentially non-different. Nonetheless, the Gopal-tapani Upanishad states that Lord Brahma obtained the power to create the universe by meditating on Krishna's 2-armed form. Srila Krishnadas Kaviraj also describes the Lord's Prakash forms in Sri Chaitanya Charitamrita Adi Leela 1.62-75 and Madhya Leela 20.1.66-83. Text 24. Prapancha tita dham tvamesham shastre pritagdvite vidhe padmi yotar khandadov vyaktamev virajate iti swayam rupa vilasa swamsha ved prakashal lakshana bhagavat tat nirupanam. Various scriptures like the Uttarakhand of the Padma Puran describe in detail such that each of these forms has own abode beyond the natural creation. This ends the examination of the categories of Godhead in terms of Swayamrup, Vilas, Swamsha, Avesh and Prakash. Every one of the Supreme Lord's personal expansions is eternal and thus has his own eternal abode in the spiritual world. That the residences of the Godhead's expansion are all eternal is declared in many scriptures. Ya yatha bhuvi vartante puryo bhagavatah priyaha tas tatha santi vaikunthe tattal lilartham adritaha. All the abodes in which Supreme Lord takes delight on the earth are present in Vaikuntha. He honors each of them with various pastimes. This is from Skanda Puran. Vaikuntha bhuvane nitye nivasanti mahojwalaha avataraha sada tatra matsya kurmadiyo khilaha. All the Lord supremely resplendent avatars, Matsya Kurma and others reside always in the eternal world of Vaikuntha. This is from Padma. So we'll continue our reading from chapter 2 of Śrī Laghu Bhāgavatāmrta. Chapter 2 is Purushavatars and Gunavatars. So thank you for joining. Hari Om Tat Sat. Hare Krishna. Śrīla Prabhupada ki Jai.